Purdue football this season was interesting. The program has had some high highs and some low lows this year. Obviously, record-wise, the season didn't really live up to expectations, finishing 4-8, with no bowl games, and that's clearly not ideal. But this year still left us with plenty of positive things to build on. First, I do want to talk about the bad parts of this year. Obviously, the first thing that jumps out is the record at 4-8. 3 of those losses were by 1 score, and 5 or 6 of them were winnable games. And while I know against Northwestern, Hudson Card was hurt, but it was still only an 8-point loss to a bowl-bound Northwestern team that we could have beat. So why was Purdue unable to win these games? Well, some alarming defensive stats are that Purdue only had 2 games allowing less than 20 points and 8 games where their opponents scored 30 or more points. In case you were wondering, Purdue went 2-6 in those 8 games where they allowed 30 or more points. Some other stats that are not good in Purdue's favor is that Purdue let up almost 380 yards per game, which ranks outside of the top 130 teams in FBS college football. Also, their opponent third down completion percentage was 35.8, which ranks 100th overall in FBS, and opponent red zone scoring percent of over 80. These stats don't look very good, especially for a Ryan Walters coached team. But the blame isn't all on the defense. This offense had its problems too, mainly with turnovers, turning the ball over 1.5 times per game, which isn't necessarily terrible, but in games like the Syracuse game, it can really kill your chances of winning. But the big thing right now is transfers. Purdue lost a lot of players in the transfer portal already. The number of players as of right now is at 18, and it will probably go up by the time this video is released. The big names in the portal right now are Deion Burks, TJ Sheffield, Corday Sindor, OC Brothers, Marshawn Rice, Dominic Moon, and Abdur-Rahman Yassin. So a large portion of the receiving core and some key defensive pieces will be leaving. But to transition into the positive parts of this season, Purdue has had a great recruiting staff. Plenty of transfers and young players got opportunity to make plays, and they did this year. So I have no doubt that Ryan Walters and his staff will recover from this. Obviously, some really good individual seasons were had this year. Dylan Thieneman will probably win National Freshman of the Year and broke several of Rod Woodson's freshman records, finishing with 106 tackles and 6 interceptions. Marcus Mbow and Gus Hartwig added another good season of offensive line play to their careers despite having injury issues this year. Hudson Card, while inconsistent at times, still had a solid season getting things done both through the air and with his legs. Devin Mockabee and Tyrone Tracy had really good seasons as one of the best running back duos in the Big Ten. Deion Burks obviously had a good year, but he's gone now, so I'm not really going to talk about it a whole bunch. Sanusi Kane had a good senior year as a versatile safety who could drop down in the box and play de facto linebacker a little bit too. Nick Scorton and Kedron Jenkins were 2 of the best pass rushers in the whole Big Ten this year. Cam Allen in his final year at Purdue had a good season too. And finally, shout out to my favorite punter, Jack Ansel, who had 19 putts downed in the 20-yard line and a career-high 2,444 punt yards. But as a team, Purdue was solid too. Just a few mistakes away from a bowl game, if we're being honest. I mean, a lot of those games that they lost were winnable, and with just a few tweaks, they could have won. And with a whole new coaching regime and a lot of new faces, Purdue handled adversity very well this year. Scored over 70% of the time once they got in the red zone. And while the defense has been dogged on a lot, they still have a lot of talent. Purdue just needs to find consistency, which should come as Ryan Walters and his staff continue to build this program and players adjust more to his coaching. Learning a new system with lots of young players and first-year transfers is more difficult than most people realize, and lots of the mistakes Purdue made this year that cost them games can be attributed to that inexperience and unfamiliarity. Once they clean that kind of stuff up, this team could return to a 7 or 8 win season. Now, with the Big Ten West being gone, it's going to be a lot harder to compete in the Big Ten, but the main thing Purdue has to focus on is not falling behind. They're going to have a lot of good young recruits coming in this year, and I have a feeling, I've already seen a few guys post offers. Purdue's going to do pretty well in the transfer portal this year, just like they did last year. So I wouldn't worry too much about these guys leaving. Obviously, a lot of these guys are big losses, and some of them are younger guys who were kind of flourishing into better players, and we're losing a lot of that depth. But Purdue's going to regain that. We've got players coming in. Ryan Walters is good at recruiting. I would not worry about this program too much. It's in good hands. I get it was a struggle this year, and, sometimes this team was really frustrating and just didn't make the right decisions at times. But again, I can't stress this enough. Just a few mistakes away from going to a bowl game with a first-year coaching staff for the most part. You've got a new head coach, new defensive coordinator, and new offensive coordinator. So the bad part of that is obviously it's going to take time to adjust to that. But the good part about that is that you now have new connections to recruiting pipelines that you didn't have before. Now, obviously, you lost a lot of the old ones as the old coaches leave, but you get a lot of new ones. And a guy like Ryan Walters has a lot of connections and can bring in a lot of good recruits to this program. So while there are negatives to having all these first-year coaches in Purdue making new systems with guys needing to adjust and stuff, and a lot of these guys transferring out because they didn't get enough playing time or they didn't like playing here under these new coaches, you're going to have a lot of guys that do want to play under these coaches who are good football players and now want to come here. And remember, we've got guys like Marcos Davila coming to play quarterback for us. One of the top-ranked QBs in the state of Texas is going to be our starting quarterback. And then you've got a guy like Ryan Brown, who played pretty solid in that Northwestern game. He had swagger. I know he threw 2 interceptions, but the option with him was so, that read option with him, RPO, stuff like that, was more effective with him than Hudson Card for some reason, which doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of promise in this young team. I'm looking forward to see what this Purdue program can do under Ryan Walters. I'm Limitless Polls. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next week.
What you get mix right, nigga, put it in the blender. Hell yeah, I'm Wingstop. Bitch, I'm selling chicken tender. It's like the beef with energy and water like Kimber. Hey, turning, looking like dinner. It's like I got the bag, boy or girl.